Okay, terrific. We're being recorded and we have a note taker. So glad to have you all with us. I'm just trying to check and see if my people are here. Sarah's here. And somebody from O'Donnell, I think. All right. So we're really glad to have you. Because this is a relatively small group, I think we probably can manage by discussion. But I want to point out to you that there is a chat option available here. So if you want to share something via chat, that will be heard, if you will. If you want to share something verbally, please raise your hand, or when there's a pause in the conversation, just jump right on in. Happy to work that way as well. This is the work group on recruitment and retention. And Sarah, can we reshare that slide? Can you do that for me? I'm going to go through the recommendations just one more time and give you a moment to process, and then we'll go into discussion. So again, these are the draft recommendations from the work group. They fall into two subsets. The first is recruitment, and the 3 items under recruitment are expanding the introduction of early care and education as a respected, desired profession as early as high school and maybe even earlier, to build interest and create pathways for young learners who may want to learn more and then choose this as a profession, and to also introduce ECE through apprenticeship and other strategies that will bring folks from other fields into ECE. The second recruitment strategy is about leveraging directors as leaders who represent our field and represent their programs, and who serve as the marketing arm of everything that happens in their programs. And then thirdly, to implement marketing strategies broadly to attract folks to the field and to promote the importance of our field for families and for the workforce. And then the other subset is about retention, including benefits that help keep folks able to stay in the field and able to work and have sustainable income, and the kinds of benefits that keep them well, as Deb so ably described. Next, to follow and adopt a pay scale that allows for mobility, that is the opportunity to advance within the field over time and to be recognized for experience and ongoing professional development. And then thirdly, to create career pathways which utilize partnerships with colleges to give credit toward experience and to be able to work on degrees while working. We all know what challenges that present to our emerging workforce as they're trying to pursue degrees and having to make decisions about school or work or multiple jobs in order to try to stay in the field. So those are our draft recommendations. Sarah, if you would take those down for the time being, please. And then we can see each other. Excellent. And I'm going to open with a question and remind you all that we've also asked that you think in a solutions-focused kind of way to lend your comments toward the what would you have us do that would help improve recruitment and retention. So I'll open first with what are your general reactions to the recruitment and retention recommendations? Anybody?
This is Carol Bacola.
Hi, Carol.
How are you?
Good. Thanks.
So I think all of it is wonderful, but I wonder in terms of people who own their own centers and the smaller centers, how this is feasible. I totally understand like the Head Starts and anything that's backed up, that's state funded. I can see how all of this can easily start to move forward. But for someone like myself who owns one center, how will this play out for all of us?
Yep, I hear you, Carol. So I'm going to ask you to think about what we could do that would help you.
Okay, so and
right, so
mine would be Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, so we've got these set of recommendations, and I think you're very appropriately recognizing that our largest sphere of influence when it comes to putting funding into the field is related to our funded programs.
Correct.
And right, I hear you about that. You're right. What are the things in terms of recruitment and retention that we could do that support all programs that don't need to be targeted just to the funded, but that could make employment with you as a private provider more desirable for staff? How can we help you recruit and retain?
And so one of the things that I think would be very helpful was if the OEC could maybe have a package for all employees, like almost like a large group healthcare plan that all of the centers can be included in, and our employees can go and talk to somebody and find a plan that works for them. That I think would be incredibly helpful in terms of being able to offer them those benefits.
Okay. Okay. That's super concrete. I appreciate that. It's great. Anybody want to leverage off what Carol offered or have another comment about the recruitment and retention recommendations?
This is Tasha here.
Hi, Tasha.
I'm thinking that I know that you talked about in the beginning, they said about high school, but you know, high schoolers starting out young. But what about having, I guess, let me not put about what about having on the job training. You know, I saw a report where in another state they had teachers in the classroom, and then they figured out, well, potential teachers working with another teacher, then they figured out that that's what they wanted to do, and then part of a package would be from the state would be training, school, what have you, but enticing people to come in and to have an idea to see what goes on in a school and how important role, what an important role we play. And then I think by people coming in to see it, we might be more inclined to retain that person.
Training combined with actually seeing what the work looks like and feels like and feeling the joy in the classroom. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's really concrete. And in the, I don't know if you said this, but I'm going to ask a deeper question about, you described a report where you saw that. Was that young students or was that a project designed for college students? Do you have a sense
No,
of what
it was in elementary school, but it was in a kindergarten class. They were short kindergarten teachers, and they offered this program, and about out of 20 people that applied, they were able to keep 12 teachers and help them go through school.
Wow. Wow, that's great retention, both of your ability to retain the data and their ability to retain the people.
The question.
Hi, Linda.
Hi, Tasha, do you know if that was a paid internship or was it voluntary?
It was paid, but it wasn't paid like a teacher salary. It was paid for their time because these people were actually working a day. It wasn't like they were coming in for a couple of hours. They were working from, 9 to 5, so to speak.
Okay, thank you.
I want to say it was in Philadelphia or somewhere in Pennsylvania. It was 2 states that had said, but it was somewhere in that area.
Thank you.
It's a great example, Tasha. Thanks for sharing it. Okay, other thoughts about how we might recruit? Okay, and remember to put this in your mind as recruiting and retaining both now we can be thinking about things we can do immediately and thinking about this as a package of recommendations as we improve and change compensation. So in the immediate and over time. Yep. Chelsea's asking if we can see the slide again. Sure. And we can probably drop you can drop it in the chat so you can, oh, I can't get it out this way. Here we go. Let's see what that, no, it won't let me paste. Sarah, can you help us with that? Okay, thank you. Sarah's the wizard, not behind the curtain. There we go. You're welcome, Chelsea. I'm wondering if there's something in particular you want to comment on related to recruitment or retention, now that you can see it.
Yeah, actually I do, now that I
Good.
see it. I was recently at a conference in Washington, D.C., and I want to say that it was a group out of Milwaukee that had kind of like a pipeline program to ECE that they were implementing. And what they were doing was recruiting young men, because they were looking for specifically male teachers as a part of their program. From early on, middle school into high school, and kind of putting them into a mentorship certificate program to go into early care and education. So if we could establish some kind of pipeline program, I think that that would be great, similar to what others were kind of discussing previously.
Yeah, pipelines and starting early are two emerging themes I'm starting to hear from you.
And also to just to add to that, kind of a way to combat the stigma of having early childhood male teachers. I know that can turn a lot of them away from the field, where parents are like, oh, you know, I don't want a male teacher, you know, in the classroom. And so maybe ways to combat that. I don't know if that takes more, you know, parental workshops or more training or more interacting with male ECE professionals, but some way to kind of combat that as well.
Yeah, to help break down those assumptions and those stereotypes.
Right, absolutely.
That could bring others in. Thank you for that. I'm going to move us to this conversation about the second item under recruitment, which is about leveraging directors, and ask what your thoughts are about the leader's role in recruitment and retention, and how you think leaders might be able to contribute, whether that's program leaders or leaders in our advocacy community, leaders in our technical assistance providers, and what contributions they might be able to make as leaders to help us recruit and retain. I wonder if anyone has any thoughts on that. What might you as a leader do? What might we do to support leaders to recruit and retain?
It's Carol again. I don't know if this is at all helpful, but I think a lot of this really comes down to compensation, and that, like, I know that was stressed, that is so central to all of this coming into play, because from what I see with my center, I have this small concrete group that has been with me for a long time. And then for a lot of people, it's turnover, because it is just a stepping stone. So there is that turnover. So I'm having a hard time with this, because I feel like it's just so central to that compensation. I think that if, like you said, if compensation doesn't change, how do we as leaders offer these things to our staff and potential people? And I don't mean to be negative at all. I want to be a solution, but having a hard time because I feel like so much of it just goes back to people want to be compensated and people want to find a balance in their life. Those are the two things that I see with my staff.
Yeah. So for those of us who've been at this for a long time, maybe it's a little hard for us to see a changed scenario. When Deb Adams was talking about how the length of time that she's been in the field, she and I are about the same age. And she said she didn't want to say what she earned, but I will tell you that in my first job, I earned $4.10 an hour as an early childhood teacher. And I had for a lot of years, I had multiple jobs at the same time, as many as 4 jobs at the same time, in order to be able to eat and go to school, because I liked to do both of those things. So I think, Carol, it is true that it is hard for us to envision, and I'm glad that the compensation message has resonated with everyone who's listening. And I recognize that it's a little bit challenging to be able to see forward to a time when compensation is a little more stable. So maybe let's think a little bit more about the transition time between now and the implementation of a compensation package. As we move forward, what could that transition look like? How could leaders help us? What other strategies? Carol, I think your healthcare example was a really important one. Dawn, I saw you had your hand raised. Maybe you want to.
That's part of compensation.
Something.
Deb, can you hear me?
I can hear.
Good evening. I just had a thought when you said leveraging the directors. If there was some way of having the directors that are currently in programs, even in a tier system, like you were saying, recognize the teachers that are at a tier 1, a tier 2, a tier 3, but really recognizing the women that have been in this field in many capacities over the years, and now they're directors, as maybe as a mentor to new programs that are opening up, as consultants, so there's a recognition for the directors that have been doing this work for a while, and new programs popping up, or there's recruitments in the community. They're the people that you can actually reach out to, and with the experience and the expertise and the knowledge and the skill set that it takes to run a business of in the childhood field. So I was thinking about that piece as well, as some type of, I'm trying to think of, is it the CDA in Washington, D.C. that does the mentor, right?
They do. Yep, there's a mentor role in the CDA. There's a mentor role in apprenticeship, which includes CDA. Yeah, Dawn, I think you're touching on something really important, which is that there's a lot of experience, and Carol brought this up as well, with folks that have been with you for a long time, who know a lot about this work and have a lot to share, and we don't really have a formal way to make those connections and create those sharing and supportive relationships.
Right, because what I'm thinking about as we move forward in all this work is the experience, the years of experience that people have been in this field. I just think it needs to be shared. Yeah. With, if you're going to do more recruitment and retaining the younger generation coming in, who can they reach out to? Mm-hmm. And these are the panel of people that would be an excellent resource for you to get your business started, move up the career ladder. So just thinking along those lines, as leveraging the directors as leaders more across all programs.
That's really helpful and really concrete. I want to probe at one of the words that you used in the beginning of your comments, which was recognition. And that mentoring role is a form of recognition. I wonder if you or others have other thoughts about ways that we could recognize the expertise and the longevity and the contributions of folks with significant experience in this field, and in ways that help them stay and help them be recognized for their valuable contributions.
Hi, it's Chelsea again. I just had a comment kind of to what you just asked and also what Carol was talking about as far as other ways to perhaps incentivize. I don't know if it would make sense for some type of maybe different assistance for educators. So maybe some type of like home ownership programs that have lower rates or more affordable housing for educators, or some type of maybe stipend that they could get every quarter for, maintaining their position as an early care, educator, or some ways that we can kind of incentivize them where they can save money if we're not going to be raising the compensation to the area that they need it. Maybe we can bring some of the other expenses down to kind of help mitigate.
It's a good descriptor too, right? Let's add compensation, but let's also try to reduce cost in some places.
Right.
It's me again, Tasha. I think that those are good points. And I want to add that if we maybe we have, how you have the work groups and things in the state and in the Office of Early Childhood, maybe using those strengths of the directors to work at making the early childhood feel better with participating or being invited to participate in different groups, like different work groups, different panels, different discussions, that they could feel that what they bring to the table is validated.
Yeah, create opportunities for folks to share and be seen. Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, it's Linda. And I think that, the leaders do need to inspire their staff and recognize them and that, but I do think along the lines of, these leaders working as mentors and, influencing the younger staff, I think that they also need to not only be recognized for what their contributions, but compensated for that work. And that would maybe help some of them, with additional funding for their center if they're spending, a few hours a week mentoring somebody and they have some additional income coming into the center because of that expertise.
Sure. Somebody said earlier, balance your work and your life. And so we should talk about some of these leadership roles as ways that can be combined with that leader role as opposed to added to the leader role.
Yes.
Right? That it's all part of a whole and not yet another additional thing that we do without compensation. Sure. Rebecca put a couple of comments in the chat. And Rebecca, I'll sort of put you on the spot if you'll allow me to put you on the spot and just say if you want to expand or describe your two comments. And Sarah, I think you can take the slide down now, and then maybe we can all see each other a little bit more too.
Hi, yeah, sure. I just wanted to share, this was back on recruitment, but some people had brought up some good ideas about recruiting young people. And I'm in the West Hartford district, and one of the high schools has a children's place, a lab school, preschool, and then they also have some early childhood courses. So I think, encouraging high schools to implement those sorts of programs could be a real asset. I don't know how prevalent they are in the state, frankly, because I didn't grow up here, but I was thinking about that and the relationship that those teachers, and staff have with the community early childhood programs. You could see some relationships being built there for student to have apprenticeships and sort of have tracks that they could follow up with for jobs. And then the other thing that's interesting and maybe unique about our school district is they have these this club called Future Educators of Diversity. So they're really looking to recruit students that are diverse in race, ethnicity, and gender and sexuality. And so they are there is a relationship with the college system too. I think that they have built. It's a pretty well built up program after a few years. So that's cool because, you know, then kids are kind of being, I think, you know, we were talking about gender and more men in the field and just, you know, you can think about a pipeline being kind of built there. And what's really neat is that those kids, like at least one of them I know of has come back to teach in the district. That's kind of one of the possibilities. So that's a good, just, you know, and that's a club. So I don't know how that could be supported by this group, this work, but it's just an idea I thought I'd share.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing both of those pieces. They're important. And I will say, and Carol has a comment about high school kids. Totally agree with that. And this is not even the first time today that this idea of connecting with the high schools has come up. I was in 2 meetings today where we were talking about other OEC activities and the idea of high school links between our work and what's happening at the high school level could be expanded and broadened, not only for the students, but for the high school instructors that we are not connected with. And to your point, Rebecca, I'm not certain that we know enough about the activity that's happening in the high schools around the state. Certainly the Department of Education will know more because they know more about the coursework that's delivered at the high school level. But we don't know enough about that coursework or about the places where there are labs in high schools where young children are coming to engage with those high school students, and that we might further support them with our documents, our professional development, and our access to the provider community that you all represent, and help those students understand more about the provider community and the future opportunities that they could have. Carol, something just popped up. Carol, you want to talk about what you just dropped in here?
I'm
College
just
kids.
thinking ahead too. I mean, my college girls are phenomenal. And when you get the right ones, and even getting the colleges involved and saying, you need to get them with their student teaching. Why not give them a taste more of the early childhood fields, but also some recognition of that. You know, like that's part of their, not only are they going into the elementary or the kindergarten, but also let's get them into our classrooms, and then it's a benefit for both. You know, they're getting that student teaching, they can get guidance from that daycare and from the director and the leadership role, if that's what they're looking into. But it helps us and it helps them.
Yep.
So just a little bit higher on the
Absolutely.
education fee.
Absolutely. Continue that pathway all the way through. Sure. Antonia, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to make sure I'm mute. It's my understanding that the conversation is happening from Stanford, that is happening in the Stanford public school system. And the way that they're talking about, I'm not sure if they approve it already, but credit courses could be obtained, and at the same time, partnership with a lab school that we have at Norwalk NCC, Norwalk Community College. So that conversation, but I think it has to do now approval through the local Board of Education with it. So that process is there because it's talking, bringing it up. But at the same time, I think it's also, you guys have to look into, financially, face it. It's very hard for, especially in the diverse community, minority to go into teaching or going into this field, knowing that they're not going to be making enough money. At the end, it's all finances. It's all about pay. So no matter what be done, but at the same time, if there is no compensation financially in a level that can be compared, it's going to be like that. We know who are going to be teaching and things like that. And also validate and respect the diverse knowledge of many of the people have in the area. And I think that's another thing. It comes into education. There is also a kind of a wall there. Like we've seen it in my area, in this area, especially. I am an immigrant myself, learned English as a second language, and I went into the early childhood. Once I, graduated after high school here in this country. But there are also a lot of wonderful people with the education already from their own native country. Professionals in the teaching back in their own country. And that is also very hard for somebody already with these degrees to be validated in this country.
Yes.
Especially,
That you brought that up. Yes.
So there is something that needs to be very deep to allow professionals back in their country to reach out for them and also make them that this is a profession that is very valuable and respected. If they don't have that, I don't think, this will continue to be the same way how it's been. I mean, I've been here. And
the challenges of coming with a degree from another country. We do need to look at that and recognize, as you said, that the avenue for building our dual language programs is built by helping those folks come into this profession, especially if they come from ECE degrees and coursework in their native countries, and how do we bring that here and build on it for the richness of our program delivery. Yeah, thanks, Antonia.
And
Lynn
one
Weiner.
last thing is marketing. You need to have marketing that faces everywhere about how wonderful and beautiful is the profession of early childhood. That has to be in people's faces. It has to be everywhere, because when we see that, children are always inviting, right? There is the people that won't like children, but there is a lot of us who love children, and we feel inspired that we can make a difference in this world by caring for children. And I think that's the biggest marketing that needs to be out there for being able to attract people in this profession.
Thanks for that. You're making me want to record you for a marketing commercial. Thank you. I feel your passion. I appreciate that. Lynn Weiner, I see your hand. Nope, you're on mute. You're on mute.
There we go. Okay, now I'm in. So
Got
first of all, I want to thank everybody for coming. And Deb, thank you so much for everything you do every day at OEC. You're amazing.
Y'all are doing, you're all doing
but
hard
where-
work on a day-to-day basis.
Yes. But where I really feel like that the educational background for people that are in early childhood is very important, because every child progresses dramatically. Let's say if they come in at 3 months, by the time they're 1, they've changed so much. 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, all the way up. And the educational people that are in these programs are amazing. And I just want everyone to know that how important this is to getting a positive environment in our world these days. So thank you, OEC, for everything you do, and everybody that's here. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Lynn, for raising that. It's an opportunity to underscore the science of this work, I think. right? That child development is a science, as is the study of any other type of growth, right? We study plants, we call that science. We study cells, we call that science. When you study human development, that is science. And the science is critical to the success of children's learning. And so just to tie that back to Antonia's comments earlier, part of the marketing, I think what I combine the two of your comments and I get to, we have to market the science of this work while we market the joy and the inspiration that can be gained from doing the work. The work is not simple. It requires thought and planning and commitment and dedication and an understanding of the science. And we need to make sure that whole package is clear so that the public understands the importance of the work and why the work needs to be compensated in a livable, sustainable wage. Right? All of these pieces make up different sides of the compensation package. You look like you were going to say something else, Lynn.
Well, the only thing that I say to everybody that I work with is that no one can go to work if they're concerned about a child, a family member, anybody else. You're going to go to work if you feel that your child is in a good place, if your family is in a good place. So to me, that's so important to be able to do your job.
Yeah. Agreed. Thanks for sharing, Lynn. So we haven't heard from everybody. I wonder if other folks want to put something in the chat or share their thoughts. If you have other specific ideas about strategies or expansion on any of these draft recommendations to help us build this out. There are processes to continue in our work with this content, as we will have the Blue Ribbon panel hear from us on Wednesday of this week, and then they'll begin to work with and process the recommendations. And we'll be back out in public with additional information as we go forward. Anyone else with any parting words or thoughts?
Deb, it's me again.
Hey, John.
I just wanted to capture my thought. Also, what I'm trying to work on is a more flexible schedule for those women that are getting ready to retire in our field.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, the flexibility of maybe a 3-day work week or 4-day work week. The hours, I know the hours are really long for our programs. To try to meet a 10-hour day and try to cover all that is a challenge. But I truly believe in, you know, the flexibility of offering more half days, 4-day
Yeah.
work weeks, you know, so to retain the staff that have been there for 20 years with the skills and knowledge and expertise that they have, to entice them to stay a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
And have that flexible work schedule. So that's another idea that you can maybe add to the Blue panel around the flexibility.
Sure. Yeah. Anything you can do to keep folks who have been so valuable, right? Who may not be quite ready to go, but would stay a little longer in a different configuration of their job.
What can I ask? What is, I'm trying to think of the phrase for when teachers share a classroom, but they teach on different days and they maybe overlap on one day. What is that called? Do you know? I can't remember. There's a word for it because I did it one year, but I can't remember. And I loved it because it was that part-time flexibility, but it was a really nice way to integrate the teaching responsibilities and like have the kids be less, there was some overlap. So it was less of a transition issue for the children.
Job share.
Job share.
Job share. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara Burke. Appreciate you. All right, job share gets on the list. Althea, 72 seconds. The floor is yours.
I'll be very quick, and I done something to Chelsea in the chat to ask. But one of the things that I think is important as well with retention, especially to for directors to get away from the center at times to go for professional development. So centers don't have to be shut down, which also impacts parents as for subs, so that they can have the opportunity, just like any other vocation or professionals, to have the opportunity to learn new tools and trades, right? And so I think having a group of skilled and certified subs would be hugely helpful for retention for our, very successful directors, and also those who are working in the classrooms as well. So I would suggest that.
Those are two terrific ideas. Thank you for contributing those. I appreciate all your contributions in the last 7 seconds. I will just say that your work is so valuable, and we are so grateful for your participation here. See you back.